Public Finance Committee, first item up, bar appointments.
We have a memo there from Mr. Warren. We would like to appoint Kareem Dean Hassan and Mary Alessandra. We have Kareem's resume here. Mary is here in person, so if anyone has any questions for her, she'd be happy to answer them. I think most of you know Mary. I would recommend.
How many?
There's two there.
Two openings. Any conversation or discussion?
This is for the assessments, right? So, is there, I know that Mr. Alessandro was working with our other program, is that correct?
Key City.
Yes.
Yeah.
So is there any kind of conflict there? Would that be?
I don't think so. She's not a city employee. On those properties where Prudential is the selling agent for whatever city properties are listed with them, there is an opportunity for her to earn a commission, but that would be no different from any place else. So if there was any property that she was involved in the sale of where there was a tax or a grievance filed, she could disqualify herself from voting on that particular property, and that would solve any problem.
I think the majority of properties that come against this board are somebody owns a house, they want to grieve it, right? They get to the level of going in front of the bar, and you know, so a certain percentage of them might be houses that are for sale, and those circumstances that this her listing or like that, she had to recuse. Right?
Correct.
And there's enough people to allow for recusal.
Yes.
Still have. Yes. Any questions?
I mean, I have the same concerns as Mary. Being a real estate agent and saying that the higher the assessment role is, it could, in future sales, make commissions higher. So I have the same concerns. But if that's not a concern of the corporation council, you know, someone that sells real estate, certainly they're qualified, that's for sure, no question. That's my concerns.
Yeah, I think in general, you know, I would think that the goal, they really want to price right, because of course they want to be high enough for their commission, but it's too high to themselves. So there's, you know, the goal is to get a price just right. So we could,
If I sell a commission, I want it to sell for as much as it can.
Sure, sure. And as a city, we want our success as properly, you know, accurately as possible, as high as it can be without being too high. And that's how it will be there. Which is good thoughts and concerns. concerns that, I think
I mean,
the
just
ability to recuse.
people go into that with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder when you go into the board assessment review to start with. So to create an error of maybe something like that, I don't know if it's what that's my feelings.
I'm here to do this.
Okay, and I will, I guess I'll second it. I want to say that Mary Alessandra is a real estate agent who I have listed house myself, so I'm not sure if I can make the appointment, maybe that I have an agreement, contract agreement with her.
I think that should be an issue.
I don't think so. It's plenty of subject for the full board, or full council voting next week anyway, so for purposes of committee, we'll not vote that.
I move out of committee and I will recuse myself next week in a full council vote when everyone's voting is that. That seems appropriate? Okay. So I'll second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye. Mary, thank you for your willingness to do this.
Thank you.
This is for both parties.
Yes.
Okay, next one is executive session.
Correct.
So we will
Recess.
kind of recess the finance committee until we're down at the end of the night here. Motion to recess.
I'll move that.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are recessed.
Okay. All right, I'll call order City Development and Planning. First item is the transfer of 2104 in Vranken to Habitat for Humanity. Mr. Sue.
Yeah, I'd like to ask to transfer the city-owned property located at 2104 Vranken Avenue to Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity has worked with the city, and the city has awarded funds to Habitat to do a home rehab, complete that rehab, and they will convert this property from two-family to one. And also the finish line time is, I believe, mid-November, probably about 200 days. And they were the one that they're going to use the volunteer help, so the cost will be substantially lower because they're not paying for the labor, they're going to pay for the material and also the lead removal and the asbestos.
Questions?
I see here it says that it'll be converted from a 2-unit to a single-family home. It was, I don't know the exact.
It was a
There are
two-family
both.
house at one time.
So it was built as a 2-family and we're going to convert it, or was it originally?
Originally, it was probably one, and then they extended some of the back and then converted to two.
Okay, so it's not a duplex or a...
No, it's not.
This is the house corner of Vranken and Salina.
I want the press conference.
Right. Moved a little bit slower than we'd like. I'm now confident we've got a plan in place that will get it converted to where we want it to be.
Great. Yeah, that would make a good single-family home.
And one of the other thing is for Habitat is going to pay the city $10,000 for that property, which in a long time for a not-for-profit organization, it's not happening. So that's good news. Mr. Clark, the Executive Director of Habitat for Humanity. Any other questions?
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to move it. Okay. Second. All in favor? Aye. All right. The item number 2, foreclosed property sale. Mr. Schweikman.
Hi. The houses that do not go into the contractor program are basically, we have them now, we'd like to start trying to sell them. It's been a long time since we've done this. We, at one point, had a contract in place with Colorado City Auctions to do this. I put out another RFP, ran it in the paper for 3 days, sent it out to realtors and auction houses, and we received one response from Colorado City Auctions, which we were very happy with in the past. There is no charge to us to provide the service. Basically, they take a commission from the selling property. We're anticipating changing the way we do this year. Again, we will take different proposals on the different properties, but they will have a minimum bid on them that Eric Schilling is determining. They will also have certain specs that they have to meet. A, B, and C needs to be done to this property to bring it up to code within a certain amount of time. And we did not used to do that. So it will be subject to the way we did things before with reverter agreements. If they say they're going to be owner occupant and they don't, if they sell it, if they say they're going to keep it for 5 years and they sell in 2 years, there would be the same silent mortgages. So everything else would be the same. What we're looking to do is put out approximately 30 to 50 properties in the first round, which would be, we're putting them together right now. So hopefully by April, by late April, early May, we'll be able to have this first round go. What I have right now, we have, I think you've seen, or was made available to you, was the response from Colorado City Auctions. So it would be nice to at least have a motion made to allow the mayor to enter into an agreement with Colorado City Auctions so we can proceed on this.
These final proposals will come back to the council for, I shouldn't say the final proposal, the proposals will come back to the council for final disposition. And these are houses, but he said houses, and I just said it again, they're really commercial properties, multiple family residents that don't fit into the goal of being owner-occupied properties. So the ones that are taken through foreclosure, and they're just, again, not easily adaptable back, so we can expect people to live in, and actually own it.
And again, the real estate was now the real estate disposition committee will review them first and select between them. Sometimes there may be a better proposal that we want to take, might be $1,000 less than a different offer, and we may go for that one because it's an owner-occupant. I mean, we'll look at all the conditions around each proposal, then make recommendations to the council based on that.
Ms. Warfield?
Regarding the time for them to get it up to code, do you know what that time frame is?
It'll be dependent on the property. I mean, I think the intent is to make it less than a year, hopefully less than 6 months, but every property is going to have its own condition. And
So it
some are
won't
going
be
to be
immediate, because, people have said that I've heard, they buy a property and then almost immediately, they're getting code violations. So I just wanted to make sure that there was a reasonable time frame so that people can, do whatever they need.
And that'll be written
That's
out.
going to be the council's prerogative to set those terms.
Mr. Erickson?
I know that the fee of the city was 0, which is perfect,
Yeah.
Dallas City.
Like that?
Perfect, I can't approve on that one. The fee that they would charge to the person buying it, which might influence their bid prices, do we know what that is offhand?
Yes, and it's in the proposal. And
Is it in there?
I forget what it is. Is it 10? Is it 10% of the price? I'm sorry, I don't remember. It's in there.
All right, I'll brief it all. All right, thanks.
Anything else? No, I'll entertain a motion to authorize the mayor to get into a contract with Colorado City Auctions. Okay, Ms. Warfield? Second. Ms. Brazo? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, now we've got several public hearings. Mr. Sykes, we've got those as well.
Okay, the first one is the Woodlawn Preserve. With the last foreclosure round, we took title to every property in the Woodlawn Preserve, which is good. Now we can abandon the streets. We couldn't abandon certain streets before because that would take away the access rights to whoever owned these properties. So now what I would like to do is call for public hearing to abandon all of the streets within the Woodlawn Preserve, and you have an outline on your map. And once that is done, then all 34 parcels in there will be consolidated into one Woodlawn Preserve parcel, making life much easier for my department and everybody.
Questions? I'll entertain a motion to approve that. Okay, Ms. Porterfield? Second. Mr. Brazo, all in favor? Aye. All 15 Kings Road.
Okay, 2 zoning changes that have been already approved or recommendation made by the Planning Commission to the City Council. The first is 515 Kings Road, which is near Gibson Street. It is a 7/8 of an acre plot, and it's in a multiple family area where a lot of the new apartments went up on Mega Street right across the way just recently. They are looking to subdivide this property and leave the single-family house on Kings Road and convert the majority of the property into R3 use, so that another apartment building would go up there.
Questions? Ms. Warfield?
And in terms of this, does there ever have to be a neighborhood meeting when they do this kind of thing, and there's that kind of development in the neighborhood?
There doesn't have to be. When they come back with their proposal, it would be a public hearing at the Planning Commission for site plan approval. So neighbors would get letters who are within a certain area of the property and would go to the president of the Woodlawn Neighborhood Association. But otherwise, no.
All right, but they are made aware?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? No, I entertain a motion. Okay, Ms. Braza, second by Ms. Warfield, all in favor? Aye. Okay. 1502 Crane Street.
Okay, 1502 Crane Street, which the city is currently owner of, was formerly Luther's Ice Cream, right near the corner of 10th Avenue. We have 3 proposals to purchase this property, and it is zoned mixed use. And right next door to it is a self-storage unit. The owner of that has proposed purchasing this, demolishing it, and expanding the property. We also had a proposal to renovate it as a convenience store and an automobile repair shop. The property disposition committee looked at these, or the real estate, the property management committee, looked at this and recommended sale to the self-storage unit. However, the zoning was not in compliance with it. So the Planning Commission looked at that and figured just the lay of the land and where it sits, that it makes sense to change the zoning of this from C2 mixed use to C5 commercial, which is the same zoning adjacent to that.
That self-storage unit keeps in excellent grounds, and everything's very clean and neat, and Luther's makes me sad every time I drive by it because it's just so decrepit and sad. So, I'm happy to move it if there's no discussion.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
All right, and just to get some final discussion on the rental certificate laws. I know some of you had questions. I don't know whether you have them all answered yet, or if you have additional questions. Mr. Schilling, Mr. Valentico? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, one of my major questions is I actually talked to Mr. Valentico and answered some of the questions. But one of the ones was the concern about the name of every single person who resides in the residence to be on the rental certificate. So I had some concerns. I understand the adults being on there, but I'm not clear the reasoning or that every single person has to be on there.
Part of the reasoning is, and we've already had this happen once in the city, where there was a fire in the property. We had no clue that there was a person who died in the fire, and the body was not found until we actually started the demolition of the property. And the goal is to know who is in the property, and ultimately we're going to try and have all of the records, and this is looking forward, but between the departments fully accessible, so that if the fire department or the police department goes to a piece of property and if it's engulfed in flames, the fire department will know, who do we need to look for? Are there still people in there? And do we need to go in to search for people? Or if they know that it's these 3 people and they're standing out on the sidewalk, now they know they don't have, somebody else unless somebody informs them of a visitor or something like that. But that's the primary reason for wanting to know who can drive here.
So it could be that it doesn't necessarily have to be names. It could be a 15-year-old male, 13-year-old female. It could be just the ages and the gender of people who are living there. Conceivably, if that's the reason.
I would say that would probably satisfy, so long as there is a clear delineation as to who can be questioned at the scene, to know who everybody is, and is this the person that is so-and-so. I would think that's going to get us partly down the road, whether or not away. If that's a problem, then I suppose we could do it that way.
Well, the question has been raised to me, it was regarding privacy.
Well, the other thing about privacy with children, schools have all the addresses of where children live. The federal government, on the tax records, when you claim somebody's dependent, they get all that information too. So if the question is, should the government have access to a minor and where they live? I mean, every level of government already has that. So it's not like we're getting anything that nobody else has at this point. I mean, I think the safety issue is a pretty substantial one. If you have a couple of people over at a house, you know, maybe a kid has some friends over, 2 of the 3 get out, the fire department gets there and say, oh, here's a 16-year-old male, we're in the clear, then, you know, that doesn't really do the job.
I understand your point, but we don't have the same thing for owner occupied.
Well, but they do ever. I have a house in the city. You can go and look right up, you know, where is mine? The city has access to that information because they need to know where I live to send me notifications for things like that. And they do it for everybody else who owns property in the city too.
But if you had 5 children, they wouldn't be listed on that.
Well, that's true. But again, the school's going to have that record. It's not whether or not the government has it, it's where is it.
Mr. President?
What is the amount of public access to the records? My only concern is, I thought it was a great example about the domestic violence victim. And that really is a concern if you're trying to keep your whereabouts secret for your own private safety.
We can
Can we seal some records so that only the city has?
redact names and so on a regular basis from FOIL information.
Because it was a tragedy that that person was not, you know, nobody was aware that that person was in the building. And my only concern, again, is the public access to it. So if the city can control that information, I think it's a good thing. It's a safety issue.
I would, there's a lot of times that we do not give out personal information. Well,
Just to piggyback off of these things, I personally looked into whether these documents would be subject to FOIL requests, and they would. They would not.
Okay. So would it be fair to say we could have a city policy to make sure that everybody is aware of the fact that this is private information?
yeah. We do a good job of screening what should not go out.
Mr. Erickson?
I want to say thank you for sending the documents today in the email. You know, my only other request would be to post those documents online. I know that, you know, there's concern for, you know, how much effort do we make and how easy are we going to make this? But I think from a customer service perspective, you know, we can register our car online, we can find out every question we have about the IRS online, every government entity seems to have a lot of transactions, a lot of capabilities online. And so to have a investor or a landlord come down to the city to pick up a paper document, to me seems like a waste of time. I think we need more kind of contemporary to post everything online. And I don't know, some of it is online, some of it's not, but I think it would be best to get everything online and to be able to conduct as much of these transactions online as possible to save the landlord time, effort, hassle. And I think it's, again, it's in our best interest to spoon feed. I think in a lot of cases that is appropriate. They're our customers. We work for them, and so with us putting things online makes their lives that much easier. We need to do it. So.
And also having them at the counter, because I don't know if they're there.
Right. Having a counter would be a given, I think.
Yeah.
Having it online is something we should
All-
be doing.
All of the documents have been available since I've been the building inspector. They're available at anyone's request. And with regards to the availability of those from the ITN, you know, that's obviously not my control, and I would certainly like and make those things available. But again, and this is strictly an opinion that, you know, if somebody wants to enter into a business, they do have an obligation, a personal obligation, to investigate the rules and regulations concerning that business. And if we're going to get to a point where we're actually going to, and I hesitate to use this word, spoon feed people then we're bringing ourselves into a situation where we're obligating for anybody who may want to get into any business, you know, to continue to speak. It's your obligation to research and understand what you're getting into. And we have those things available. They're available upon request. You know, you simply, if you want to get into a business, which the rental business is a business, then you need to understand how to go and research your business. We can make this as easy as possible, but if we want to make this so simple and continue to resolve problems for the landlord, and continue to, you know, and make things easier and easier and easier, then we're going to put ourselves in a position where the barrier to entry to a very serious business, we're lowering the bar again and again and again. And that's my opinion. And to say that, you know, a serious business person that wants to enter into a business would take it upon themselves to research that business and to make sure that they understand the rules and regulations that are associated with it.
I agree with you that it's a serious business. I disagree that putting barriers like having to come down to City Hall to get a sheet of paper is a proper test to challenge somebody to say, well, if you can't come down to City Hall to get paperwork, you shouldn't be in the business. I'm in business, and I like doing business with people who make life easy for me. And I think it's our job. We're customer service, every single one of us.
Absolutely.
And including you, maybe not just the elected officials. And we need to make it as easy as possible. But going through the mortgage process, if they can't figure out that, going through title transfer and all that, that's enough of a task. If they can handle that, they should be able to handle getting your documents. But putting those documents at every access point, I think, is in the best interest.
I agree.
And just, well, I mean, he did say he wants to put them online, and the one thing, I think there's a perception out there that we're not trying to help people. But at the end of the day, anybody who comes to City Hall, the code department, water department, or anything with any questions, we'll go step by step with them on what they have to do and everything. There's nobody who ever calls up and says, you know, I want to know what I need to do to rent a property, and they hang up the phone without knowing the answer. We give everybody all the information that they could want when they contact us for it.
And there was a specific request regarding the checklist for the rental certificate, rental properties. That was a specific request, and I know that you sent it to us via email. So specifically, is that particular document there on the counter, somebody walks in, they can take it out?
Absolutely, and it's been there on the counter since I've been in the building department.
Okay.
And there was even I would say, a rougher outline prior to that.
Okay.
And again, anybody who has rented and presented themselves as a landlord in the city and participated in the program, every single time they went through a rental certificate, that entire certificate has a checklist on it.
Okay.
Because those are the things, and those have not changed. So, you know, for a landlord to come in and say, I don't know what you're looking for, simply means to me that you don't participate when you're asking for a rental. Because on that rental certificate is the checklist, what we're looking for, the recommendations, the violations. Those are part of the paperwork that has been adopted since 2008 when the program was made law. So those things, in their own right, have been in form and fashion in several places. So those are there. And this one is available. It has been adjusted for ease of use. And it's available. You can come down and it's a form you can just pick up on.
I just want to make sure
No,
that the point was clear because that was an issue that was raised, so you answered that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Reedy?
Another question that's come up from some of the speakers and people I've spoken to is the fee structure for the certificate. That's at, we're saying that's at cost. How do we derive that cost? So many hours we're putting in for inspector, or how do we derive that figure? And then there'd be any movement on that figure.
It just depends on what the council can do whatever they want. It just depends, you know, how much they want the general public to have to subsidize the cost of these inspections. If you think it should be borne by the people who aren't in the business, then you can adjust it accordingly. If you think that the way it is now, where it's being paid out of the cost of the fees, then I don't see any room to lower it, and I know I've spoken with Eric about
Are we
this.
saying the $50 is a break-even point?
Absolutely. In fact, you know, there's been several articles just recently, and there was an article just a couple of weeks ago in the Albany TV where they've adopted a $50 rental certificate fee, and they're saying that they're not even recovering their costs at that point. You know, for $50 to understand that we're involved 2 to possibly 3 admin persons, the vehicle cost of an officer going out, there's a half-hour minimum, you know, that he's in the property, and then he's got to come back, he's got to concise that into notes and put that into a Munis, a data system. You're talking several hours of time that goes into each rental. And, you know, at $50, you know, this is something I think is very, very important.
Anything else?
And one more. So when, to get back to the question that Mary posed before, in terms of the name being on the certificate, when there's a fire, for example, how does the fireman get access to that information at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're going with the fire? Is there a phone call they're making to somebody and say, hey, 123 Main Street, you know, who lives there? We got this, you know, Bob Smith and John Doe and Jane Doe and 15
Right,
days.
we do not have that ability to do it. It's one thing we're trying to correct.
Right now, it's sort of archaic in that extent, as Gary said, and if that comes to me and I go and, you know, get into Munis and look at the file and say we're looking for these individuals, and hopefully that information is accurate. You know, there are ways that we can cloak certain names if there are issues that somebody would like to protect themselves. I think there's ways to work with that. And again, if somebody's searching for somebody individually and they came in and wanted information on ABC property, they'd have to have pretty good information themselves that that person they're looking for is at that property. Otherwise, they'd be asking us for this folder, this folder, this folder. They'd have to go through all of them to find that particular person. Now, we can work with the council and the thoughts moving forward about, you know, certain cloaking if that was something we truly needed to do. But to Carl's point earlier, it's very important that when we walk up there, it's not just not a 16-year-old, but it's Bill that we're looking for, or Sarah, or someone, and that we're able to account for those people on that street. Not only that, when we go to a property with a code issue, or a police issue, or a fire issue, we need to know that the people that are in that property are supposed to be in that property. Things change from the minute the lease is signed, or no lease is signed. It's very important that we understand who's supposed to be there and why they're supposed to be there.
Well, just to make sure we fully answer your question, though, like Gary said, right now, the fire department might not be able to get that information right off the computer, but there's a procedure in place where certain people get in touch with certain people, and then I would get to Eric, who then he goes and checks out the actual file for that property, see if there's been any electrical permits or any issues the fire department should know about before they go in there, and that would be part of the thing in that file. So the information would get to them.
Do that for that.
Work within the budget the council gave us.
So, in regard to that, how long do you anticipate it being from concept to it actually being able to be utilized? Or, like, obviously, if there's a fire next week, what you described wouldn't happen.
No, it would, and that's the kind of stuff that's happening right now. I think the question was, does the fire department, they roll up and they see it right there?
Yes.
And that, you know, I don't have, if that's what you're asking, when that's going to happen, I don't have an answer to that. But I mean, in terms of the information, if we collected it today and there was a fire at that residence next week, that information would still get to the scene in a useful time period.
Okay.
I'm serious about the app document. Maybe we can find some kind of way to communicate with this.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Pulse, what says we did vote this out of committee 2 weeks ago, so we don't need to do it again, I assume, or should we?
If you're not making any changes, no. Go back on the calendar for...
All right.
Can we make sure that we have it in there that if people are giving their personal information, that we're showing them that that's not going to be released? That, you know, if that's a concern, and we can just add that language to it.
We can add that.
Mr.
Well,
Evans?
it's kind of voted out since you're making a recommended change.
Okay. All right, did you have something else?
No, I was just going to say that I'm in support of this. You know, I think, as I said in the council meeting last week, what we have here is better than what's on the books currently, so we're making progress in the right direction. So, I think there's a lot of concerns, and, we're open to making adjustments going forward, as I am. But I think, generally speaking, this is something that's better than what we got on the books now. And so, I'm in favor of it.
I had a lengthy conversation with somebody the other night, just kind of an impromptu, and it happened to cross paths with someone, and I think there's more things that we can look at, but I also think that this sets a benchmark, and then we can move in a forward direction from here, and I agree that it's better than what's in place now, and I know that Mr. Schilling is looking at ways to enhance this and continue to work, and so I'll move it forward.
Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. I was also going to put CDBG on the agenda, and it didn't get here. So I'm just going to say at this point, if any of you have any specific questions related to the proposal that we've gotten, if you want to just get them to me this week, and then I'll talk with Dick Perga, and we have the public hearing next week, and then, of course, then we'll have much more discussion about it. Okay. All right, if there's nothing else to come before City Development and Planning, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So, Ms. Barraza, second. All in favor?
Call for the Health and Recreation, and Mayor McCarthy will go for the contract.
There may be some elements of that that would be in such sort of negotiations. I don't think council wants to first entertain an executive session before they review the final proposal.
Is there any of it that would not be executive session as well?
Well, because all the, you see, what is going on, subject to negotiations. Yes, sir.
So it's all about negotiation?
Could be. Might be.
You should hold a great executive.
Okay.
Probably just get a vote on it. This is come out of executive.
Okay. And we'll hold for the session. And the SCCC baseball diamonds?
That's also negotiations. For executive session.
I'll move we recess. Right?
All in favor? For recess.
Oh,
After
go ahead. And I should have mentioned this is representative conference in Rochester.
All right, so I'll call to order public safety, community, police review, board appointments. Mr. Mayor.
Council President, I had sent out letters to the various groups delineated in legislation looking for recommendations. They've been coming in. Two of the recommendations are included in the packet for your consideration.
Are you prepared to move those?
Let's get back to the page. Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And public hearing, changes to city code, towing fees and fees schedules. Mr. Polk.
Well, actually, Shanza Knowledge in my office has been doing the work on that, so I'm going to let her provide the information to you and answer questions.
Okay, so when the budget was proposed, the council had to set aside for revenue that would come from towing as well as the impound lot. And in order to satisfy that and meet the revenue forecast already put in the budget, we would need to establish towing fees. And currently, there are no towing fees put in the city code itself under Article 5. There's no established fee. And essentially, what we aim to do is put in some language that will allow us to set fees through resolutions that will pass through city council, and the fees would be collected by towing companies and then turned over to us. Neighboring cities such as Troy and Albany, they have established towing fees, so it would be kind of in stride for us to do that too.
One of the things that, and somewhat of a tangent, last week there were changes made by ordinance with respect to various fees, and I apologize, off the top of my head, I don't know what they were referencing. But what we said is that there will be a fee, and that fee will be set by resolution. I personally like that because it makes it a whole lot easier for you guys to change fees as it's needed during the course of the year or circumstances change, who knows what. But I do want to add, since he's not here tonight, Chuck Thorne did express some reservations to me that if it's an ordinance, there's no issue because it gets into the code book and it's there and you never have to go check someplace else. And it's a little bit more of a headache for his department to keep track of all of those things when you can change it by simply passing a resolution. They go to the code and it says it shall be set by resolution, and they have to go back and make sure they get the most recent resolution for whatever number is going to be in there. And since he is not here to speak for himself, I just wanted to let you know of his concern with respect to that. That it is more of a pain or a bother to the city clerk's office. Having said that, as I said, my preference is do it by resolution. You say that there is a fee, the ordinance says that there is a fee, and then the fee is set by resolution as circumstance and so on requires.
Mr. Erickson?
I guess, is there a well, two questions I had. One particular to this showing, do we have a resolution that would go along to specify what the rates would be? And then the second one is when we have all these resolutions that are going to determine the fees on all these different areas, is there one centralized location where we have a list of all the fees that we're now collecting from this fee to that fee?
That, I think, would be the answer. And right now, every resolution, ordinance, resolution, anything that you do is maintained on a server in the clerk's office with a program called Laserfish. And that is a searchable program. My office uses it all the time. I know that there are other offices in the building that do. But you can go in and you can probably search for fees, and it will bring up all of the resolutions, and then you would have to go through. But they are in date order, so you could pick the most recent and see if there's fees for golf, towing, whatever. Now whether or not we should take the time and go one step further and just have a schedule of all fees as they change, that's not a bad idea. It's just more work for Chuck's office.
He's not here for
I at least wanted to bring up his concern. I didn't want this to go through with his concern not being noted.
Well, I think the table of fees would actually make it easier for him guys
Yes.
to make, right? And
Yes.
not digging through everything, it's all there.
And to the best of my knowledge, it would just be starting now. I believe that the last week was the first time that you have done it this way. And as I said, it makes it easier, simpler, and faster.
Is the rental certificate fee on resolution or is it
My recollection is that the ordinance says that there is a fee that you set up by a fee to be determined by resolution.
On that one, I left it the way that it was at the time, and it's just the fee was still $50.
Okay, so we didn't change that.
If the council wanted us to, we could.
Yes, Ms. Blanchard. Could you explain the process now with how it works if someone gets their car towed?
Well, we don't have a fee established in the city code presently. We only have one established for when there's a snow emergency and the cost then. But since there was revenue put into the budget, we need to be able to take away a fee in order to meet that forecast. So this call for public hearing is really searching to amend the city code to add a fee into the code,
All right.
to actually establish a towing fee, sorry.
So right now, if tomorrow they want to take my car, so what happens? They call,
H&K, we have,
City's divided into who's on call, dispatch, or police officer would make a call to dispatch. They request a tow truck, the tow truck would come out, tow the vehicle. Usually, there's an underlying reasons that the vehicle is probably ticketed, some parking issue, some other things. Sometimes it could be involved in an auto accident, it's disabled. Then it's either towed, in some of those cases, to the place of car owner's choice, or goes back to the lot of H&K or
Bovars.
Bovars.
oh, and so we get absolutely no revenue. We just call them and we have an agreement with them, and all fees that are collected are paid directly to those, one of those two.
Correct, with the exception that if there's an underlying ticket
Right.
assigned to the vehicle or whatever the reason it's created a situation with the vehicle that's towed. There we may or may not get some revenue depending on what the ticket is.
So will there be any increase in these fees? Is that how we'll end up getting our portion of it?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Erickson?
I guess I'd want to know what circumstances we'd be charging a fee. I mean,
In any,
if there's an accident and the police come and rescue me, put me in an ambulance, and then they tow my car, and they're
yes, your insurance company would pay that.
I don't think so.
If it was disabled, it would. And I'm not sure, if you're injured, the vehicle's not disabled. I'm not sure. But if you're injured, you should pay.
Well, that, if I could, I'll jump something else, because Sean's and I have been doing a lot, we have a lot of talks with the police about this, and when you talk, in situations like that, there's an accident, the people, if they're able to, they're given the chance first to call, and somebody can come and tow their cars wherever they want, but because, the police have a duty to keep the roads clear, traffic's going to get through, if they don't do that on their own within a certain amount of time, the city's got to step in, and you can't just leave the car sitting in the middle of the road. So in that instance, when the city is the one who calls and brings the tow company in, the fee would be applied. If the people call themselves and bring someone else, then there wouldn't be a fee.
I'm kind of feeling if it's for a violation, I guess I'm okay with it, but if it's not for a violation, I'm not sure if I am. But I'd have to do some more thinking about that.
I mean, in neighboring cities like Troy's, Albany, Colony, they all have a fee that the city will take when a vehicle's towed. And like Carl said, we basically, if the individual whose vehicle's disabled for whatever reason uses their own towing company, they say, my brother owns a towing company, then we wouldn't take a fee out of that. Because we are contracted out with these towing companies, that would be the only situation where we would be taking a fee that would be established through the code. And it's pretty common in this area. Troy actually has listed out a fee schedule of what they charge. Albany does theirs by resolution, which is what we're trying to do. So it's pretty common in neighboring cities for them to do this as a method to raise revenue.
So you're saying Schenectady has the lowest fees in the capital region?
For towing?
For towing?
For towing.
Mr. Did you have a question?
Yes. Thank you. I almost forgot. I agree with Carl that in the case of an accident, a lot of people aren't going to say, I want Bovars to tow my car, I want H&K to tow my car. They just had a traumatizing thing occur, and they may not know, and then to be hit with a fee afterwards. I have to respectfully disagree that that's recoverable from an insurance company. A fee, the toll charge is, but I don't see it as part of the toll charge. We have a hard time collecting just for the toll charge, and when it's over the freight, which is going to be. Is this going to be included in the toll charge, the fee?
That's how I understood it, future construction. That's
what
Yeah.
we're going to be, that's going to be established by a contract. But yes, it is a part of the tow charge.
Just for clarification, what we're talking about tonight is changing the code to say that the fees will be adjusted via resolution, right? We're not talking about fees, we're not talking about... Right, but we don't even know what that fee schedule is yet, correct? I mean, the fee schedule would come before the council. What we're saying is we're creating towing fees, and that we're going to change those towing fees via resolution, correct? We're not saying what we're going to apply them to or what the fee schedule is yet, correct?
Right.
You call for a public hearing.
Right.
Right.
That public hearing, you put out what you propose.
Right, but what I'm saying is this discussion is very preliminary, it's not really what
Correct.
is on the
This is-
table
This
tonight.
is the call for the public hearing.
Right.
You get input back and
Right.
within the process, you adjust it up or down.
Before I'm willing to call for a public hearing, I want to know what we're proposing. Right, I mean, if you go to the public and say, what do you think about a fee? They're gonna come and go, don't do one, right? And then we're gonna say, they love our idea and we're gonna implement a fee. So to get good feedback from the public hearing, we gotta say, well, we're gonna apply the fee in these situations, it's gonna be this amount. And then they come back and say, no, $10 is too much, we want $9. And then we can tag a little bit, right? I mean, the public hearing should be a forum for us to actually get meaningful feedback. We're asking for feedback on a proposal we haven't really proposed yet. So I would say I want to.
My understanding of the fee structure was put together and prepared internally, so you're ready to submit that to council as part of this public hearing.
We don't have it, so.
So let's do it.
Can we get that to council?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the numbers we put together. We can get it ready. I can tell you right now, we were looking at a $40 fee per tow, and then a $10 fee for impound per day for when the vehicle's impounded. And from reaching out to other people in the area, especially the towing companies, right now Schenectady with no fee for a tow is by far the lowest in the area. Even once we add this fee, we will still be the lowest in the area. The industry standard is, I've been told by the tow company, significantly higher.
And this is for any type of tow.
The way that I described it to you earlier in those situations. And that's, again, what my research has shown is the industry standard. So we're not trying to go above and beyond anything. We're trying to catch up to where everybody else is at this point, and we're still going to be a bit below.
I have another question. So currently, you talked about Albany and Troy and other local municipalities. So currently, do they also have an agreement with tow companies? And on top of that, have this additional fee? Is that what you say?
What I said was they have a towing fee that the city receives per tow. I'm assuming that they would have a towing contract with a towing company in order to establish that fee, in order to guarantee that they would receive a fee per tow.
And the contract is separate from what we're talking about right now. With the contracts that we have, they just guarantee that when the police pick up the phone to tow somebody, somebody's going to show up.
We get any revenue from that?
Right now, we're not.
So they just agree to do it and
They're doing, what we do get is they
do
do,
the rates they are allowed to charge?
that's set out in the contract, yes. And again, we are substantially below the rates of neighboring communities. But the one thing they do provide to us in the contract is when we have vehicles that break down, they need a jump, they need a tire change, something like that, they do provide those services to us, free of charge.
City vehicles.
City vehicles.
What is the tow charge that they're, so I have an issue, if the cops come, they tow my vehicle, so I'm gonna have to pay a fee to Bobar, right? I'm gonna have to pay now a fee to the city, which is 40 plus 10 a day.
No,
Right.
No.
I understand that you're going to pay one fee to the towing company. And
Right.
they get an account.
And they're
But
gonna-
They're gonna charge, if it's just one day, they're not gonna charge me $50, they're gonna charge me the $50 that the city's getting, plus however much it's gonna cost them to actually have a truck to come out and tow me. So do we know what that charge is? Then I'm assuming that's set, it's not open, how much you got, right?
You can talk
Robert, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now, what they've been doing in the last contract that we have at this point has been $95. And in our discussions with them, we've been talking about $110 plus the city fee. And that would get us up to a little below what the industry standard is for the area. Right now, we are significantly below what the industry standard is for the area.
So they want to bump it from 95 to 110, plus we're adding on the 40.
And part of the reason for the bump would be because they're going to collect the fee on the city's behalf and turn it over to us. So the city, we won't have to do anything in terms of administrating this. It's just, it goes on, we get the reports, and we collect from them. And again, you'll still find after that that we will be below what the industry standard is for the capital district.
A couple of questions. Are we going to have our own internal pot at some point?
We can look at that internally where this would bypass that and just go to the existing.
So if
towing
there's
vendors.
storage charges, then it'll be the company that's storing its charges plus $10?
Yes. And again, that's normal in communities.
Sorry?
What's the tow charge from our contract? Like, or if it's 75 to tow, then how much per day for storage?
It was $25 per day after the first 24 hours, up to $250.
Okay.
And then if the vehicle's there for like over a month, then on, say, May 1st, that schedule would start again, the $25 per day.
All right, so the per meter car tow is $150 plus 35 a day. This kind of, when everything's added up.
No,
Well, just for full disclosure, when we were discussing this with the tow companies, we were also discussing raising up the impound fees to get them up to the industry standard as well.
So it's not 25 a day, it would be,
Well, right now, that's what it is. It would be going up to $40 a day plus the $10 a day the city gets.
so it's 50.
Which, again, while expensive, is the same as in neighboring communities.
So right now, we're just putting this on for a public hearing, right?
And I think you're saying with the understanding that we're going to get something in writing that's going to show the fees and all of that.
we're still trying to make sure it's all ironed out internally, and work out a new contract, and we should have that number for the next,
Well, we'll have it
we will have that,
before the public hearing.
Okay.
right.
Just as a point that I'd like to make, I think when someone puts this sheet in our packet, I think that this data down that I just jotted down that we talked about here, that really should have been provided to us a week ago so that we can think about it. I can call Albany and see what they're charging, and I can call, or, do a little research if I find any. But the fact that we're coming and we're asking for a public hearing, and the only thing we got is one sentence saying we're thinking about doing some charging fees, really doesn't help me. I mean, I'm not able to do my job effectively. The guts of what we're proposing and what we're calling a public hearing for aren't being provided in advance of today's meeting. Because really, I might say, I don't know if I want to call for a public hearing yet. I'll think about it for a cycle, and then let you know if I want to call for a public hearing. And it's just going to push the whole thing back. And I think that in past practice, we would say, oh, okay, we'll have a public hearing, and the public rarely comments because there's really not a lot of information. So this information needs to come out earlier. I really think it does.
I think someone has asked for that over and over again, but it hasn't happened as of yet.
And I was out of town, so I didn't.
I didn't, it never comes when it should.
Right.
So would this be in the newspaper that we're, our proposed, because sometimes I think that when it comes to a public hearing, people don't come out because they don't hear, unless they watch the committee meeting, they don't get the information in a timely fashion. So, and this information is really significant. We're talking about, significant changes to, not everyone gets their cars code, but it's going to impact some people. So will this be the information as well as the announcement that there will be a public hearing regarding this via the newspaper?
Well, as you know, we don't control what goes in the newspaper, but yes, everything is, announced beforehand. There's a call for a public hearing. It's part of people are going to say there's going to be a public hearing regarding towing charges.
So it will be, okay, yeah, that's.
Not that a lot of people read.
The public knows.
I mean, I think the article that our reporter would put in would probably be more notifying than our public notice.
I guess I'm confused as to why we're negotiating higher rate with the towing company and not just adding the city fee. Do you know what I mean? Like, I get that they're below the industry standard, but then good for the people of Schenectady. Like, I guess I'm confused as to why we're trying to negotiate a higher rate for the towing company and add a fee for us. I'm not opposed. In some situations, I have to say, I'm pretty uncomfortable with the thought of getting into an accident and being physically harmed and having to worry about calling a tow truck at the same time and not getting the fee. But I guess I'm confused as to why we're approaching it on the other side.
It's no,
So I think the contract is expired.
it expired in 2010, and we're asking for the towing companies to do substantially more work on our behalf. And at the same time, they're coming to us and they're saying, well, that's fine, but right now Schenectady has by far the largest towing charges in the Capital District. So if you'd like us to do more work for you, we'd at least like to get to the industry standard.
And their costs are rising as well, so it in turn has become more expensive for them to work for us. And they already provide us like a service as far as, helping us with our public vehicles and whatnot and the like.
The also thing, we're not just trying to throw money at the towing companies. We're doing the best we can to do the best job for the citizens of Schenectady.
Right.
So I don't want to give you the impression we're just giving everything away to, get out of work as fast as possible.
Well, I guess that's why I'm asking the question, because I think it needs clarification, because the way it sounds, it's not, if I were a citizen listening to the meeting, I'd be like, well, why are they trying to negotiate more money for the towing company and adding fee, so I get that. So the additional work we're asking them to do is administrative, because they're collecting the fee on our behalf,
Correct.
Right.
because they're already doing the towing for us, so that's no additional work.
Right.
More administrative.
Well, like Carl said, the contract expired with them in 2010, so we have to kind of keep in stride with the rest of the rates in the area
Right.
to keep them on board.
So what have we been doing in the meantime, in the 2 years since then? What
And
have we-
operate under the terms and conditions of the existing contract.
Is your Exec?
Since I've been on the council, I recall, I'm trying to think like when it was, but I recall having a discussion on the towing rate. So I'm wondering if we renewed the contract. I thought the council, before you were on,
Yeah.
and you were on, so Peggy and I are the only ones here today that I think were here at the time, but I remember talking about towing rates at some point since I've been on the council, renewing a contract. And so, are you sure we didn't renew it?
Was it back in 2010 that you?
Yeah, but I don't think we would have done a 2-month contract or something. It would have been a
It was
1
a
year or 2
one-year
year.
contract.
The last contract that I had when we looked for contracts was the one that was from 2010. And that's what their understanding was as well.
Okay, just clarify, you said it was in 2010, you mean, so it had to be prior to 2010, it expired in 2010.
It's a one-year contract.
You think it was a 1-year contract
It was a one-year contract.
that we signed in 2010?
I believe it was March 2010.
And
To
again,
March 2010.
we get your copy of it, we'll get you all this stuff. Honestly, we came here thinking today we're just going to call for a public hearing to add the fee and make it done by resolution. None of this, it's going to be weeks and weeks before all this is done, so we're not trying to hold back any information from the council at all. It's just in order to call for the public hearing, we have the information we needed today, and everything has to be written up and provided to everybody, the public as well, before the public hearing.
How would the public access the scheduled fee before the public hearing if they wanted to do that?
It would be available from the city clerk's office like any other legislation. There can be a public hearing on.
Okay, just so they have that. Any other discussion or questions?
How much money is plugged into the budget that we're covering with this?
It's approximately $75,000, I believe, but I defer to Deb.
It's actually 80,000, I believe it's 50 for the towing and 30 for the impound lot. It is 30 for the impound lot and 50 for the towing surcharge.
Okay, any other questions or discussions?
So, yeah, I guess so, if we need to renegotiate a contract with the phone companies, if it's expired a couple of years ago, is that going to come on the agenda as well?
You would have to.
But probably not as part of this.
No, but so that should make the agenda next cycle, probably to renegotiate that. And I would assume that we're going to bid it out, so is bidding going to go out?
You know, that's, I can't answer that right now. As a professional service, it's not something that would have to be bid out by law. But I can't tell you what the exact plans are for that right now.
I think we should bid it out. I think we should.
Just on that note, I mean, it is advantageous for a towing company to be getting the city or town's work. I know when I was working in Rotterdam, they used to give each towing company 1 week, they would do the town towing, they split it up for a week, so it is good. You know, if I have a towing company, naturally, I'm not going to just wait for customers to call me. If I have the city call me, I'm going to have a lot more towing. So it is good for the towing company too. So as far as their rates, I'm not sure what it is now, but when we negotiate the contract, it's certainly a plus for the towing company to be on the city's call list.
So I would suggest that we actually, that the council needs to make a resolution to request that the towing contract be bid out versus just negotiated as a service internally. I can't imagine why we wouldn't get, unless there's a reason, strategic reason why we would do that. I think bidding would be just a thought.
It would give a little bit more competition to the process, and maybe we can get a better price if we get, other folks who are bidding on the contract as well, so that's a possibility.
In the meantime, I will move to call for a public hearing.
Okay, and I will second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Anything else to come before public safety? That's for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, call to order public service and utility. Mr. Lee wanted to discuss the time order.
Is Joe going to get the message? I think Joe Piazza said he's going to come down to discuss this. I had some calls, and maybe you have too. There's people in certain areas of town that don't get the city council meetings, even though they're getting time with Time Warner. They get channel 16, but they can't get 17 and 18. And I just received a complaint when I was at my eye doctor's office this past week. And the person said, we can't watch the council meeting, we don't get it. Now, there's a question whether, and obviously, it's not OSM's problem. I can't believe that it is. I think it's Time Warner's. But, and Joe had some information on it. He said he was going to come down when we discussed this. I don't know if he's upstairs. Okay. Just hold on a minute. I mean, I've heard, have anybody else heard this from him?
Yeah, I heard it from just actually only one person.
One person.
I had the issue a while back in
Something with programming or setting.
You hit auto program, a couple buttons on the remote, and then the TV goes through the whole cycle, and then more channels show up. So I'm not sure if that could be a big portion of it.
Yeah, I have a basic
Yeah.
cable.
You get it, right?
And I get it.
Yeah.
I had to give directions on my way downstairs.
Okay.
So I couldn't hear, I mean, I know the gist of, was there a specific question?
Well, I mean, these people that have the problem, I mean, I've even explained to them, maybe your TV set isn't programmed correctly. And, I mean, is that what you're do you think it's a Time Warner problem, I guess is my question.
It all depends. It's kind of like saying, I got a squeak in my car, or it's making a noise. It all depends, well, where it's coming from, what it sounds like. The signal, just so we all understand, the signal either comes from here, like for instance now it's live, so it's coming actually from here onto channel 18, but it's going from here to Proctor's, through Proctor's to Time Warner, and then at Time Warner is distributed across either the city or also the county, depending on how it's determined to configure it. If it's a recorded program, it's coming from Proctor's, going to Time Warner, and then distributed there. Time Warner determines which channels programs go on, what channels of public access is. It all depends on how the franchise is, but it basically depends on which channels are available at the time that they assign the channels for the systems for each individual city. I think a lot of people, sometimes they confuse the fact that Schenectady County is Schenectady City. Our agreement with Time Warner is the city of Schenectady. Time Warner, of course, serves the whole capital region. The signal is distributed often to areas that, on some level, maybe even other parts of Schenectady County don't necessarily, are not part of our agreement, but they still receive our public access. So then the question becomes, who controls the distribution of the channels? That's Time Warner's issue. So if a channel is showing up where it shouldn't be, that's a Time Warner issue. The city can't control that, and Proctor's doesn't have a switch, or it's not like a train station where you're saying go here, go there. If someone doesn't have 17, if they're saying I don't have 17 or 18, the question then is to ask them, is your channel completely missing? In other words, are you going 16 and then it goes 19? If you don't have anything on 17 or 18, then it's probably a programming issue. Your TV is probably not programmed for that 17 and 18, particularly if you have I have an old tube TV. If you didn't pre-program your TV in the last 5 years, then you probably won't have 17 or 18 because there was nothing on there. Yeah. The digital boxes are different. So people with still the analog systems or basic cable with the first 20 channels have a slightly different signal path than the digital boxes, because the people with the digital boxes are assignable. So Time Warner can actually go to your box and tell you which channels you're getting. They can't do that if you don't have the digital box, but your basic tiers has a digital box. So if you don't have the 17 or 18 at all, I would call Time Warner technical support. That's what they're there for. That's what you're paying for. And say, hey, I don't get these channels. How come? And they should be able to walk you through. First, they'll start you with programming your TV and get the channel. And then if there's another issue, and I think I emailed you a couple about, I know some cases where people have had cable systems for a long time, and channel 18, they weren't getting at all, because at one point, channel 8, Showtime was on 18.
Yes.
And Time Warner used to pop these filters in, and they get left. So even though they've done a digital, occasionally these filters stay there and they're filtering out channel 18. That's another, again, Time Warner have to come out to service call. The only other possibility, then the question goes, okay, are they getting 17 or 18, but they're not getting the programming they expect on it? Then you have to ask exactly where they are. Are they in the city limits of Schenectady? If they are in the city limits of Schenectady, yes, they're supposed to be getting channel 16, public access, channel 17, education, channel 18, government. That's supposed to be the way it is. If they're close to the border of, say, Niskayuna,
One person that I know is.
yeah, then Niskayuna, for instance, when they negotiated their franchise agreement, negotiated their educational channel to be held back separately for them. So in Niskayuna, you get public access on 16. I think you get the government on 18. But on 17, they got Niskayuna High, not Schenectady High with this program. The wiring is not that, doesn't go along the border. So when they wired this whole area, there's overlaps that are unavoidable or overlaps. So some people may be getting the programming. Rotterdam gets their government from Saratoga. That's where their government thing, and there was an issue with Rotterdam actually asking for some of their government things. People were used to, everybody was getting 16 when we separated out from 16 to go to 17 and 18 as a government and education. That's when some of these issues came up because we took the government stuff off the public to make more room for public access. And yet there are people in some of the surrounding communities that wish they could see our government stuff. Don't forget, it's live streaming as we speak on livestream.com on the internet. You can watch it on video demand now on 3 different places. On OSM, Video on Demand, on YouTube. City of Schenectady has its own YouTube channel, and also on archive.org, where all of our programming is now available for download. So, people have foiled copies of these programs in the past, but realize you can go to the Internet Archive on the web and download any one of these City Council committee meetings in their entirety, unedited, and have it for your home enjoyment and use. There are 200 up there. I was shocked. I looked the other day. We've done 200 recordings of these meetings, and they're all been uploaded to the web and available to the public free of charge.
I could see myself when I was younger. Okay, very good. So if you get any calls, I'll do the same thing. We'll direct them to Time Warner. And I know this one lady I talked to, she's probably about 90 years old, or maybe older. So I'll have to maybe walk her through. And it's probably a program. I just wanted to be sure, you know, it isn't anything coming from here or Time Warner.
It's worthwhile.
Not Time Warner, yeah, or Time Warner.
It's worth collecting, though. I mean, if you have a street that's supposed to be on the system and is not, it's probably something that could be talked to. But it definitely, that's Time Warner having to do wiring, which, you know, but they might put it in their list and say, okay, when we get back into that area, we might do it. But yeah, it's good. Collect as much information as possible. You can always forward it to me, you know, finding out that, and I'll get back to them. I don't mind doing it.
Thanks, Joe, for your thorough explanation. Anything else to come before public safety? We're adjourned.
Okay. Call to order claims. These 4 items are all executive session. Yes. Motion to go into executive session.
You're also going to do the health and rec issues?
Yeah, we'll
So
do
just-
claims. We'll do claims first.
But your prerogative, just for the public record, you know, come back.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes.
Because, okay, so we're going to do.
Claims and health and rec.
Motion to go into executive.
So moved.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.